Tánaiste Eamon Gilmore úsáid sníotar, Bhearab Galar Mod Bon. You're probably familiar with a saying that's common in the west of Ireland about immigration, that people had to take the Bod Bon. And as you know, forced immigration and unemployment are two of the biggest challenges that we face. And the government programme made jobs a priority. We were promised a jobs budget. No, I have to say what we got was a damn squib. And we were told that in the programme for government that jobs creation is central to any recovery strategy. And I have to say that the Exchequer returns yesterday made very, very disturbing reading on this front. Because when you compare the end of September figure with the end of October figure, at the end of September, the USC income tax return was 125 million ahead of profile. And by the end of October, it had fallen to being 147 million behind profile. Now that's a turnaround relative to profile of 372 million. In other words, compared forecast against forecast, you had this massive turnaround in a month. And the only logic that one can get from the figures is that there is a sudden downward trend in employment in the economy, despite the so-called jobs initiative. Now, I know that the live register is to be published today and that obviously you have the figures and I don't. However, one would expect it to show a decline in the live register at this time of the year. But the other question that will arise from the live register today, if it does show a decline, is that because people are taking the Bod Bon, or in other words, because they are emigrating?
Question, Deputy.
Coming to the question. Your jobs initiative is in tatters and the pension funds were raided, and all that we seem to be getting is employment figures in decline. What hope can you give the people of the country who are unemployed at present that the government will really tackle this issue and come to grips with it? And blaming the situation you inherited is wearing thin, as you were elected on the basis that you would rectify all these issues and that you would deliver especially on jobs. Will the forthcoming, will the government, I was 18 years creating jobs, 18 years as top manager creating jobs. Count Corla, as the Deputy is no doubt aware, I spent 18 years at the coalface creating jobs. And I have a huge experience of actually getting on the ground, getting my hands dirty and creating jobs.
Right, okay.
My question, Tánaiste, is will the forthcoming budget be a real jobs budget? And will the government have something real that they can offer all of those who are listening or watching today and whose main concern is the creation of real employment and an alternative to the Bod Bon?
On the Tánaiste.
70 jobs in County Dublin and only 3 Irish people applied for them because of your system.
Can I just say that from my own knowledge of history, and I know that Deputy O'Keefe is a great student of history, the master skipper and entire crew of the Bod Bon were Fianna Fáil down the decades. You look at the emigration records of this country, and the emigration records were during periods of Fianna Fáil government. Now, in respect of the government's commitment to reduce unemployment and to create jobs, that is the government's primary objective. May I say, in respect of the Exchequer figures, that the revenue from income tax was on a year-on-year basis was up last year, which is the first time in 3 years that was the case, and the figures are broadly on target. It is true that from one heading to another there are some variation. But when the November returns come in, we'll have a fuller picture, and we expect that to be broadly on target. With regard to the creation of employment, The government already introduced a jobs initiative, which was successful. The government is continuing its efforts to attract investment to this country. The attraction of investment to this country is obviously dependent on this country's reputation being restored. We have done, I think, made considerable progress on that. If you look at the kind of commentary that was being made about Ireland on the day that you left office, Deputy O'Keefe, it was frankly embarrassing to read. It would be very difficult to conceive of anybody seriously investing in this country in circumstances where that kind of commentary was being made about us. The commentary that is being made about Ireland now, following 8 months of this government's stewardship, is entirely different and is entirely more conducive to attracting the kind of investment into this country that will create jobs.
Thank you. 1 minute supplementary from Deputy O'Keefe.
Tánaiste mar fóldaiche an Tom Bavasov in Imrica, nas the Quaig dinner of Finnegal agus and Lochtaibre Realtus Kayla. Now, you've said there that the income from income tax is up year on year. Of course it's up because of the USC, the Universal Service Charge, that of course you were going to abolish or reduce. Now, it is up, but the Exchequer returns themselves spell out month after month after month, if you read them, that the reason they're up is the USC. Now, you say that the Jobs Initiative has been successful, and I'm very interested to hear that. Are you able to give me, because obviously you're privy to information I'm not, can you give me the increase in employment, total employment in the economy over the last 3 months? Because if you have that information, I think it would be a good idea to share that with the House. If you haven't got that information, I'm wondering, how can you tell me that the Job Initiative is successful when all of the figures point to exactly the opposite?
Thank you, Deputy.
And finally, yes, the commentary about Ireland is good. Why is it good? Because effectively, up until now, you were implementing the policies and the programme we laid out. The problem is that your job initiative, that the jobs initiative that you promised, is a total failure based on these figures.
Thank you. Tánaiste.
Well, first of all, the jobs initiative has been a success. If you look at the tourist industry, you look at the hospitality industry, where we targeted the reductions in VAT. That has seen very significant increased numbers of tourists during the course of this season. And both the Minister for Transport, no, I have not off the top. I'm not going to give you top of the head figures, but both the Minister for Transport and Tourism has placed on the record of the House the improved situation in relation to tourism, and the Minister for Social Protection has previously told the House about the improvements that are being made in relation to JobBridge and the labour activation measures that were contained in that programme. In relation to the wider issue of restoration of reputation, the reason that this country's reputation has been restored, Deputy O'Keefe, is that there is a government in place now that enjoys confidence at home and respect abroad. The measures that the government have been pursuing, including the changes that the government has successfully secured in the bad agreement that you made with the EU, ECB and the IMF, are producing results. Those results are seen abroad. Those results are contributing to a better investment climate, and that investment climate is what will create the jobs, reduce the level of unemployment. Reducing unemployment, getting people back to work, that is the government's priorities and will remain the government's main priority for its life until the level of unemployment is reduced and people are back at work.
Call on Deputy Mary Lumington.
Gurmagad the last can Corla. Tánaiste, we saw yesterday your government hand over €700 billion to unguaranteed bondholders. We see evidence today of tax revenues falling. I think of particular note is the drop in VAT, a further reflection of the decimation of the domestic economy, people's spending powers due to austerity measures directed at middle and low income earners. And tomorrow we expect to see the government's growth projections revised downwards yet again. We also found out recently that a 3.6 billion accountancy error meant that the state's outstanding debt would be reduced by some 2.3% of GDP. 3.6 billion euro. Now, Tánaiste, that is one hell of an accountancy error. I note that this matter was discussed at Cabinet yesterday. You might share with us the government's view on this accountancy error. And I might also ask you, Tánaiste, given the massive salaries that those in the NTMA are on, 14 of them are paid in excess of €250,000. Do you still retain confidence in the work that they do? What about the Department of Finance? The Department of Finance, the NTMA claimed that they alerted the Department of Finance about this issue in August 2010. And of course, the current Secretary General of that department presided over this blunder. And yet your government proposes to appoint this man to a plum job on the European Court of Auditors. Now, I have to ask you, Tánaiste, on what basis you could possibly defend the appointment of this individual to anything above all the European Court of Auditors, given this blunder?
Thank you, Deputy.
And I want to ask you, do you still have confidence in appointing this man to that post?
Tánaiste.
There's been a long-standing practice in this House, Alas Ceann Comhairle, that attacks are not made on individuals who are not in a position to defend themselves. And in particular,
Order, please. Please. Order, please. Please.
And in particular, Alas Ceann Comhairle, on civil servants who are not permitted to engage in political or in public debate. Now, if members of the House want to change that, that's another debate. But I would ask members of the House, including the Deputy, to respect that and to respect the rights of the individuals concerned. The medium-term fiscal plan will be published on Friday and will contain the latest macroeconomic and fiscal forecasts of the Department of Finance. These will inform the Government in terms of its ongoing budgetary deliberations. As part of the ongoing technical work for the debt projections, the NTMA has recently drawn to the attention of the Department of Finance and the Central Statistics Office the fact that there was a change in their relationship with the Housing Finance Agency that has an impact on the accounts of the two entities. Previously, the NTMA acted as agents for the Housing Finance Agency. Since late 2010, the NTMA have loaned directly to the HFA. These loans appear as assets in the NTMA accounts and liabilities in the HFA accounts. The liabilities of the HFA are included in general government debt. The corresponding assets of the NTMA have been included in the liquid assets of the NTMA, which are also part of general government debt, effectively a double count. Removing the impact of this double count reduces the estimate of the 2010 general government debt by 3.6 billion or 2.3% of GDP. The Government needs the most up-to-date fiscal information to best plan the path for Ireland's recovery. This kind of accounting mistake is unacceptable, and all safeguards will be investigated to ensure that it is never repeated. And indeed, the Minister for Finance yesterday made it clear that he is pursuing his own inquiries into the matter and intends to put in place the most robust system to ensure that there is not a repeat of this kind of accounting error in the future, which is unacceptable.
Thank you, Tánaiste. Just say, Deputy, I'm not going to permit reference to persons outside the House. Okay, thank you.
But can I say, Tánaiste, I have the utmost respect for the civil service. and public servants generally. But I have to say this to you. There has to be accountability when mistakes are made, when blunders are made, when an accountancy error to the tune of 2.3% of GDP is made. And I make no apology for calling to account very senior civil servants on very, very big pay packages with very, very generous pension entitlements to give an account through yourself and the Taoiseach as the heads of government. And I find it rather puzzling that you would make a statement like that. I understood that your government was to herald a new dawn of accountability at the most senior levels. I will not apologise for naming the NTMA big rollers, and if I have the opportunity and if I have their names, I will read them into the record of the Dáil, because these people are paid through the public purse and need to be accountable to this House. Tánaiste, can I ask you, this 3.6 billion, this accountancy error, which you find so unacceptable, does, as you correctly say, adjust the debt burden down by 2.3% of GDP. What implication will that have for the upcoming budget? This represents, obviously, an improved scenario in terms of our debt burden. I'm sure it has an implication in financial terms, in terms of interest repayments and debt servicing. Can the people of this country expect, having uncovered this unacceptable accountancy blunder, that you might relieve them of some of the harshest cuts that you are clearly planning for a short few weeks' time?
And Tánaiste.
Well, first of all, can I say that this government is and will insist on accountability from everybody who works in our system, whether that is in the civil service or state agencies or anywhere else. Deputy, if you want, or any members of this House and the relevant committees want to bring any of the relevant officials before those committees and put questions to them, you are entitled to do that. That's called parliamentary accountability, and that's the fair and the proper way in which to do it, where you bring the officials before the relevant committee, you ask them questions and you allow them an opportunity to answer it. It is not the right way to come into this House and to make allegations here under the privilege of this chamber, where the officials concerned do not have the opportunity to come in. You want to bring them before a committee, you want to use the committee system, you want to use the committee. No. Let's talk about fairness now. We're not talking. We're not dealing with. We're not talking about secret court-martials here now. We're talking about people being given the opportunity of having a right to respond to themselves. You want to use the Oireachtas committee system to do that. That's fine, that's the fair way in which to do it, but don't come in here to this House, make allegations about individual public servants who don't have the opportunity to reply to what they have to say. With regard to the question that you've asked in terms of does the discovery of the 3.6 billion have or the accounting error have an implication for the budget, it does not, because the interest rates which have been calculated on the level of debt were calculated on the lower level. In other words, the corrected on the corrected level.
Thank you. I call Deputy Joe Higgins. Deputies, 2 minutes.
Tánaiste, will it ever dawn on you that your programme of savage austerity, far from creating jobs and recovery, will plunge our society into ever deeper economic crisis? And shouldn't that be clear to you from the shortfall of €383 million in VAT up to the present time, reflecting stagnation in retail sales and services because of the savage austerity that you continue to impose on ordinary people, while then continuing, on the other hand, transferring billions of resources to banks, bondholders and assorted speculators? Now, shouldn't it be clear to you as well that the baleful social effects of austerity, with nearly 500,000 people on the live register, are very clear? the St Vincent de Paul Society expecting an unprecedented level of demand for its services from desperate individuals and families this Christmas? Shouldn't the disaster that it is the Greek economy make you rethink your blind adherence to this policy, where 3 years ago the Greek people were promised that if they accepted the savage programme of cuts, they would by now be on the way to recovery, and instead have been plunged into greater misery and more crisis? Tánaiste, can I ask you, what is the point of the Irish Labour Party when you bring to the debate on the current crisis absolutely nothing that is in the slightest different from Merkel and Sarkozy and all the high priests and hawks of right-wing neoliberal capitalism, when you simply slavishly submit to the diktats of the financial markets and those faceless institutions that hold the lives of tens and hundreds of millions of Europeans in their grip? And you have not a word of opposition to say or an alternative.
Thank you, Deputy.
Now, will it ever dawn on you, Tánaiste, that at this time capitalism is in a systemic crisis, that it will not find a way out, that major private conglomerates are on the strike of capital, and it's only by a complete change of policy, and particularly by major public investment in infrastructure and in services, that we can recreate and rebuild our economy, create the tens of thousands of jobs that we needed, and put our people back to work?
Thank you, Deputy.
And if you don't bring such an alternative, shouldn't you really merge into the grey mass that surrounds you on this government benches, and not to pretend that there is something distinct called an Irish Labour Party anymore?
Thank you. Tánaiste. Order. Tánaiste. Order. Please, Tánaiste.
Well, I'll ask Corla. The Deputy asks me a number of things as to when they will dawn on me. It would appear to me that there is one thing that has dawned on the Deputy, and presumably on other members of the House opposite, in the course of the last 2 weeks, and that is that we shouldn't go the way that Greece has gone. Because when I was in here, the last time that I was in here answering questions, the question that I was being asked was, why don't you do what Greece has done? I noticed there's nobody asking me that. There's nobody asking me that today. Now, as far as the deputy is concerned, can I say to him, when will it dawn on Deputy Higgins that you can't spend what you don't have, and this country is in a serious deficit? And if you want to borrow to bridge the gap between what you're spending and what you're getting in, you can't borrow from people if you tell them you're not going to pay their money back, which seems to be what Deputy Higgins is advancing. And when he asks me,
listen to the people now.
When he asks me,
You're not.
When he asks me what is the purpose of the Labour Party, let me tell him what the purpose is. The purpose is to solve the economic mess that we have inherited, to get this country out of the economic hole that we found it in last March, to get people back to work, and to build a better and a fairer society. Now, yes, that is going to require difficult decisions, difficult times, but we are going to do that in order to bring about the recovery that people in this country want, rather than to have people continue in unemployment, continue in the difficult situation that they are in. And it would be welcome if occasionally Deputy Higgins, and indeed other deputies who are so frequent to criticise, would come in here with an odd constructive proposal about how we might do that.
Deputy Higgins. Deputy, order, please. Sorry. Order, please. Sorry, deputies. Sorry, please, sorry, Deputy Stagg, please. Deputy, please. Order, please. Deputy Stagg, I've called. Sorry. Order, please. Deputy. Chair. Deputy Stagg. Deputy Stagg. Chair's on his feet. No. Deputy. Sorry, I've called Deputy Higgins. 1 minute. Deputy Higgins.
Last count call. 1 minute, last count call. Obviously, last count call being denied any impact whatsoever on government policy. This is the only way the Labour backbenchers can find their voice, by a clamour in the Parliament. Tánaiste, in case you didn't hear me, Tánaiste, what I said is that this country precisely should not take the road that Greece has taken. That's the point that I have made. That's the point that I have made. Because the road that your colleague Papandreou has taken for the last before him New Democracy and then him in the last 2 years is a disaster. And that's clear, and the suffering of the Greek people is testament to that. The policy of austerity is ruining Greece and its people. You say you can't spend what you haven't got, but apparently the Labour Party and Fine Gael can give billions of what we haven't got to bankers and bondholders and speculators. Now, Tánaiste, you know, almost 100 years ago, the great socialist James Connolly, who co-founded the Labour Party, and would reject with contempt its present role, would reject with contempt its present role, finding the European people confronted with the looming catastrophe of World War I, and finding them abandoned by virtually all, even the social democratic parties which slavishly went behind their imperialist masters supporting the war. What did he do? Connolly stood boldly out. He called for mass resistance and an alternative. And in his words, he said that we should resist until the last capitalist bond and debenture will be shrivelled on the funeral pile of the last warlord. The Irish Labour Party today believes that the last bond and debenture should be repaid to the European speculators and bondholders at enormous cost to the Irish people and to the further deterioration of our economy. Now, even if you don't listen to the man that founded your party and would revile what you're doing today, there are non-socialist, non-left economists who carry great authority in economic circles. Nouriel Roubini, for example, Paul Krugman and others, Stiglitz, who all now say categorically that continuing the programme of austerity is an absolute disaster. So can I ask you again, will you now have learned the lessons of Greece, fundamentally abandon this disaster of savaging the living standards of working class people, of pensioners, of the poor, and instead embark on an alternative policy of public investment, massive job creation and the recreation of our economy?
Your time is up. And Tánaiste, order please. Order. Tánaiste.
First of all, can I thank Deputy Higgins for his kind remark about the Labour Party backbenchers. I'm sure he will have noticed that their number has been added to by one, Deputy Nulty, who was elected last week in Deputy Higgins' own constituency. I know. I couldn't help but notice yesterday that Deputy Higgins had difficulty congratulating Deputy Nulty, because unusually for some reason Deputy Higgins found himself up there in the corner when Deputy Nulty was introduced to the House. So perhaps he might take the opportunity today of congratulating Deputy Nulty, who's elected in his own constituency. Can I say to Deputy Higgins? Can I say to Deputy Higgins? The concentration.
All right, Tánaiste. Please now. Without interruption, please.
Can I say to Deputy Higgins that I share his interest in the history of the early part of the 20th century, 1911 and 1912 and so on. Unfortunately, I don't get as much time these days to read about that as Deputy Higgins clearly does, because my focus and the focus of my party right now is what happens in 2012 and 2013 and 2014, and it's about getting people back to work, and that means that we have to deal effectively with the economic crisis that we have discovered, get the budget deficit down, that is a reality, deal effectively as we are doing with the banking situation, and I'm sure Deputy Higgins will have noticed that the approach that the government took earlier this year in relation to the banking situation is working, and that we are now seeing private investment going into Irish banks, including the recent private investment decision in IL&P. We are pursuing a strategy which is about investment, about getting people back to work. That is what the government's focus is on, and it would be helpful again if, instead of some of the 100-year-old rhetoric that Deputy Higgins comes in here with, if he would come in here with some modern proposals for today's world to deal with the problems that people who are living today and who are experiencing unemployment today and who are having mortgage difficulties and all of the difficulties that are discussed here regularly in the House. We want those dealt with. That's what the government is focused on, and that's what we will deal with, and we will deal with it successfully.
Thank you, Tánaiste. Thank you. I now call on the